Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. Here we are in my shop, and today is a good day because we're going to get started on a very special project as we begin my build of Captain Rex. Starting with the helmet. Let's get started. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in my shop. As you saw from the intro, we're going to be working on Captain Rex helmet today, and this is the first part that I'm doing for my kit for the 501st. If you did not see the introductory video to the series, I would strongly encourage that you go back and watch that, because I go over the kit in its entirety, as well as the tools, materials, and supplies that you're going to do for this, or need for this build. We have the phase 2 animated style Rex helmet here, and we're going to be working on this bucket first, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to be doing some time lapse throughout this process, and we're going to go start by drilling out some holes. So let's get started. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to work on the cleanup for the helmet now that we have still more resin pieces falling out of it, but that we have all the drill holes marked out and everything. So we're going to go ahead and spend some time filing this helmet down, get into all the crevices, and back to you after the time lapse.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so we are starting off the build, of course, with filing. After, of course, we have all drilled out the holes in the visor and in the teeth here. We are working with some files to go in and smooth out all the areas and really kind of just take our time getting this done. You can absolutely do this entire process with like a rotary bit, with a sanding drum and stuff like that, or rotary tool with a sanding drum, which I eventually do, but I'm showing the process that you can do this entire thing with files alone. But so it takes time. Obviously, as you can see, I got the time lapse going here. I'm just kind of carving out all the edges here, and for some areas it might actually be more advantageous to use a file rather than a rotary tool, specifically this part where it connects, the back of the helmet connects to the back of the helmet, because there might be a groove in there that you're not able to get with the rotary tool, and you may sand off material that you don't want to sand off inadvertently. So that's just good advice to have. Yeah, I'm just kind of going through here and kind of just taking off as much, kind of just taking off material and trying to separate out the pieces, which we eventually do get to. I suppose you could even use like a cutting wheel or something like that. I am a little apprehensive of using cutting wheels, just because of, past experiences with them and everything. But you're more than welcome to, use a rotary tool. Just make sure you do it safely. I'm just showing you some files because sometimes a decent file set is often cheaper than a rotary tool, and I know not everybody has all the money in the world, so I'm just showing you a cheaper alternative option, though it does take longer to do. For most of the helmets, though, when I do resin cast, or when I take resin casts and finish them, I opt to use a rotary tool for a lot of the bulk removal, and then use the files for cleanup. But as you can see, the files work just as well.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We're taking a quick break from working on the bodywork of the helmet. We're instead going to move on and to a much smaller part of the helmet, and that is going to be the rangefinder. As we discussed in the previous video, we have the rangefinder kit, And we have first this aluminum rod, which is of course part of the stock. The rangefinder head itself. Two little flaps that go at the bottom of the aluminum pipe here. I have a little screw and washer setup, almost like a Chicago screw kind of setup basically, that goes and attaches to the helmet here. I have this little rubber ring here, and then we have these two circular discs that look like this that will eventually hold the stock or the aluminum rod here in place. So we're going to go ahead and work on the assembly of this. I've got some Loctite super glue here. And what I'm first going to do is I'm actually going to clean the bottom part of this rangefinder up a little bit, and just by using a little bit of sandpaper. I'm not really worrying about any like Bondo work or anything like that. It's actually a pretty clean setup. It just requires a little bit of work. I'm using some 320 grit sandpaper here. Okay guys, now that I got that all sanded and cleaned up and everything, it's time to move on to the next step. What I'm actually going to do, as opposed to gluing this end in first to the rangefinder head, I'm actually going to go ahead and do that to the much lighter rings first. And essentially, like I said, just to hold it in place, I'm going to do a little bit of Loctite super glue. Kind of make sure that, come on. There we go. This is the professional liquid super glue, not the gel. I tend to find that this stuff holds a little bit better than the gel form. Now we're going to go ahead and add that in there. I'm not going to use any accelerant because I don't want there to be any potential crustacean that could get in the way. And then what we're going to do, this is where these guys come in. So we're going to actually add a little bit of glue here. A little bit of glue along the ridge. And we're going to glue the first of these flaps right into the circle there. And you probably will get glue on your fingers. I'm just separating the end a little bit there such that I can get some glue on the inside of the stock. Right on the inside like so. Come on. Show up. Focus. There we go. A little bit there. You can see the bead, and then I'm going to wipe it off. It's got a scrap piece of leather in this case. Probably can use a paper towel. It'll be better. So there we go. That's pretty flush. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side here. Luckily, a little bit only goes a long way. And that is pretty good. I'm going to hold this in place just a little bit. Takes about 5 or so seconds to set. just like so. And then we'll go ahead and do the cap cover on top. In this case, I'm going to add a few drops of glue to all the surface there. That's all I need. There we are. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clamp this in place. I think I got some clamps nearby. 1 second. I'm going to clamp this in place like so I have even pressure all the way around the entire apparatus here. And what I may go back and do is I may add a little bit of filler on the inside, on the edges there, so that this is all clean. But the glue will definitely hold. And I'm actually going to go ahead and add a little bit in this forming gap here. And then I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off. Or at least wipe off the excess. Now all that glue will get right down into the crevices, and then once that's dry, I can go ahead and sand the exterior and smooth that over. And then if I need to, I will go back and add some filler just to make sure that that is all flush. But that is how you do the bottom of the stock. And then what we're going to do Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I got this all unclamped now. Got a nice even seal. Now what you'll notice is that there's one circle that is slightly thicker than the other. This one's slightly thicker than this one. This is going to go on the inside. The thicker disc is going to go on the inside of the helmet like so, and be part of the rangefinder. Now for gluing the rangefinder head, the head itself goes towards the extra flap here, goes towards the inside or towards the center of the eyes of the helmet. It's a little hard to explain, but essentially it lines up kind of like so. So what we need to do is I'm going to pre-place this. I'm going to test this out. And that's how we basically want it with the rangefinder there. Now, there are ways to potentially motorize this and everything, but I am not keen to do that. Plus, you see Rex himself move the rangefinder up and down in the show. So I'm not exactly apt to doing that, but what I am going to do is I'm going to take a pen and I'm going to mark right where I need it to have this all line up. And I'm going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol later to get that mark off the stock there. But I've made my mark of where that needs to line up so that when I put in the glue, it won't shift from that position very much. I've put a little bit on the inside, just a little bit of a squeeze out. There we go. And then for a little bit of extra insurance purposes, I'm going to add a little dab right here at the base. Some of that will suck down into the crevice, creating a nice seal, which is exactly what we want. So, that is the rangefinder assembled for the most part. I'm going to leave that be to dry, and then we're going to continue to clean up the helmet more. We will worry about the rubber ring and the hardware setup for the rangefinder once we are actually into the assembling mode. So we're going to continue to clean up the helmet, and we'll get right back to it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to quickly with our utility knife, well, more so carefully, basically. We're just gonna scrape off any small amounts of excess material. Try to get things as flat as possible. Along the seam edge here. Let's see. And it's more just getting like the thick burrs and everything like that. And if you scrape into it, you're going to be sanding this whole thing anyway, so don't worry if you nick it a little bit. It's also what we have spot putty for. Kind of just going around. It may be a little hard to do it with a blade like this. You may want one of the longer craft blades, basically, so you can get more of an edge. But this will do in a pinch, basically. I'm just going in with some like 220 grit sandpaper, basically. You might be able to get away with doing something lower, like maybe around like 180 or even like 150 grit sandpaper. But this makes it such that I only just use one piece of sandpaper, or one type rather. And I also don't have to worry about gouging into the material because it's a rough enough grit to get the job done. I may not need a new piece altogether, because I was using that one earlier. It's a rough enough grit to get the job done, but it's also smooth enough, or fine enough of a grit, where it's not gonna like tear up the surface. Already I'm noticing a difference between what is still a seam here and what is kind of becoming more blended in here. That's exactly what we want. I'm just gonna continue working back and forth like this all the way along the seam of the helmet. Oh yeah, that's really nice. You might still see the indentation and everything, or the seam line, but as long as you can feel that it's smooth and that's blended and everything, you're pretty good to go, because the paint's gonna cover all that up. There we go, that's pretty good. So I'm gonna continue working on this, get it all smooth, and then we'll be back for the next step here on the helmet. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and now work on, I've added a little bit of Bondo to the seam of the helmet here. While that's drying, we're gonna go ahead and install the magnets that are right here. There are 4 magnets in total, 2 for each side, and you want to select a drill bit that's going to be the same diameter, more or less, as the magnet itself. And there's 2 little indentations on the back of the helmet there and there that are going to be where we drill into. Okay, we're gonna go and slot one in. It is not quite enough, because you want the magnet to be pretty flush with the surface. Try that again. There we go. So I don't know if you can see that. That is pretty flush with the surface right there. This is the top magnet, so I know the polarity. And the bottom magnet is flush with the helmet itself, or the back of the helmet surface here itself. It's exactly what we want. So now what we're going to go ahead and do, I'm going to slide this top magnet off. I'm actually going to go ahead, do I have a pen here? I don't. Well, I know that this polarity is down. What I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. If I can get this to unglue itself. Let that spread out a little bit. While that's drying, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and actually instantly set this. There we go. Just like so. Now we're going to go ahead and go into the helmet here. This is where I'm going to go a little bit slower, because on the helmet side you'll notice that there is no material behind the hole. So you'll want to be careful. Go slow, go methodical. A little bit of a breakout there, but the hole is still intact for the most part, which is good. Okay, so now comes the fun bit of matching up the magnet's polarity. So you know, for this one, let's break out one here. I know the polarity for that. We're going to slot it right in the hole here. It's a little tight, so I am going to carefully with the drill just widen it a little bit. Still got the same clarity here, which is good. Ah, there we go. Exactly what we want. Okay, now from the other side here, I'm going to go ahead and add glue on the bottom side here. Let that be for just a moment. And then we're going to go ahead and instantly set it right in here, right in place. Very good. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, but we're going to test it just to make sure. Yeah, that'll definitely work. Beautiful. Okay. Now for this magnet's polarity, or for this one's polarity, just like so. Okay. Let's go ahead and test fit this in here. Do a little bit more cleanup work here. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to check the polarity. So, this side is up. You could mark off the polarity, of course. This is just a quicker method for me, and I've done this enough times where I rarely have issues, but if you're just starting out with using magnets, it's always good to just mark it off, just to make sure you're not gluing the sides that repel each other, essentially. I don't remember offhand what all that is. Okay. So now those magnets are set, and you have a helmet that's completely enclosed in. Just like so, which is absolutely fantastic. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and add the strap that hangs off the back here. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here. I've gone ahead and I've already sanded out the pieces here, cleaned up the rest of the helmet. Now we're ready to install this bit here, which is the elastic connection that connects the back of the helmet here with the underneath, or with the main bucket itself. What you're going to need, you already have, Kevin Weir from Imperial Surplus has already installed the bristle-side Velcro on this piece. So all you need is 2 pieces of carpet-sided Velcro, which I am going to get from my new Velcro stash here. Always, if clamps are one of the tools that you can never have too much of, if you're a maker, Velcro is one of the materials you can also never have too much of. Same with like glue and tape. There's plenty of that. I was working, of course, with the Dremel earlier, as you all know, And I got a lot of resin dust to clean up and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and grab and cut off 2 pieces of some of this carpet side Velcro. We don't need a lot, but just enough to serve our purposes. Got my piece there, gonna go ahead and cut that in half. And we're gonna go ahead and just lay the first half right on the inside of the bucket. And we're gonna place it right about there, give or take. Maybe about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the circle cutout here. And what I like to do with this is adhesive back to Velcro specifically, and what I like to do just to give it a little bit of extra strength so this will pull away, is I like to actually add a little bit of super glue to the back of it, just to give it a little bit of strength. Tricky bit, of course, as usual, is trying to get the backing of this off. Works like so. Could go ahead and lay a little bit of super glue in there. I'm going to go ahead and add this to the inside of the helmet. We're going to press it down in there, make sure that it stays. Make sure that this connection stays in place. Okay. Go ahead and let that cool down a little bit. The chemical reaction and everything. And now that is all secure in there. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is add in our strap, just connected up like so. I'm going to go ahead and just add this right to the bristle side on the strap here. I haven't taken the backing off yet. And now we're going to test out the placement of the strap on the inside on the back. I already know roughly where to put this. And the good thing is that you don't need a lot of tension. You don't need a lot of tension on the elastic itself. Actually, you want it to be just slightly taut. I think I know roughly where I'm going to put it. And this bit I'm actually going to just go ahead and press down into the slot, or into where I need it, and then just use glue as the perimeter security factor. There we go. Go ahead and put the back on. Make sure it's in the place that you want it. Pull it a little taut and then press it into place. There we go. And actually that will hold quite well. Because that way, it goes like that, and then connects back up like so. Just absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what we need. So, I'm going to do a little bit more cleanup on the back of the helmet. But we are basically ready to move on to the next stage. So I will be with you in just a moment once I clean up these edges. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here for the next part, which are going to be the installment of these. These are the little tusks that stick out from the base of the, or from the helmet cheeks right in here. Basically. A little hard to tell with my finger in the way, but that's where they're gonna go. There's one for the left and for the right. We're gonna clean these up first because there's a little bit of the leftover resin material from the cast. And all that needs is a little quick sanding. I have my garage door open so that I can vent out some of the fumes that I've been working with in here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't take much, but at least the edges are all sanded and ready to go. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to both glue and screw them into place. And how I like to go about doing that is we're actually going to go ahead and drill a hole. Just for reference, these are the screws I'm going to use. These are wood screws, number 8s, that are 3/4 of an inch long. And the idea with this is that the glue is merely going to be one that sets it kind of in place, and then these are going to be what holds the tusks together up against the cheeks here on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and measure what drill bit we need. I think I actually already have one out here. Take something off the ground that I'm going to need for later. And go ahead and drill that in place. What you can technically do is you can actually put a piece of tape on the drill bit here so that you know how far it is that you're gonna, if you want to go. I am just guesstimating basically. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off the back of the helmet here to make it easier. Now people may install this a different way. This is how I like to install them. Just because it makes it a little bit easier. And it also makes it a stronger connection too. And you want it to where it's a bit angled on the bottom, and that's by design. You want it to where that bottom angle. It'd be great if I had a pen or a pencil around here. 1 second. Go ahead and mark off what is essentially the highest point on the tusk itself, on that angle that's eventually going to go towards the inside there. Because what you want to do is you want to have that face towards the bottom or the very inside edge of the cheek. That way it sits the most flush. I'm actually going to go ahead and add a little bit of glue right now. And it's a little tricky to show you the camera work, but essentially I'm going to take a very small screwdriver here. Phillips head, of course. It's a little hard to maneuver. Screw in there, but okay. And just so people know, this here is the screw, and that there is the tusk. And actually, I take that back. My black line, if I can angle it correctly, that's that spark there, that dot there is my black line that I drew. It kind of is going towards the corner of the cheek right up in here. So it's all about trying to get that proper angle for these guys. So now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side here. I'm probably going to speed this bit up, just so you all know. Okay, so now that we have that part done, that's what that looks like there. And so those will be ready for when we paint the entire helmet and get that all set to go and everything. So now, what we're next going to do is we're going to add the rangefinder that we had built earlier. And the first part that we're going to do, let me find back of the helmet. Ah, there it is. So keep it all together like so. So, helmet, or at least the rangefinder. You have, of course, your little black ring, and then you have this little doohickey. We're going to unscrew this first, and you're going to want to add and drill a hole that is going to be basically the same diameter as the circle that is in the rangefinder. At least I think so. Hold on, let me double check to verify that. Ah, actually no, you're not. You're going to drill a hole that's the same size of the brass screw that's in the kit for attaching the rangefinder into the disc of the helmet here. And I think, let me go ahead and check. I got the perfect drill bit right there. I don't know what drill bit this is, but this is perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and just drill right into the helmet here. Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and do a test fit. It works, and it does. Perfect. It's exactly what we want there, for there to be enough room to do that. Okay, so now this little washer that was included, we're going to put that back on the screw there. go ahead and put that into place. Just to have it as a placeholder like that. The black ring, to add to the edge right there. It's just gonna be loose. Right like so. And then we go ahead and slot in our rangefinder setup here. Now this might actually require that we remove the back one more time, just to make this easier on ourselves. And this will also require us to screw in the rangefinder just like we did before with the tusks. And Phillips head is going to work very nice for us. I think I might be able to. Let's see. There we go. Just enough to hold it in place. Now, ta-da! That way, ha ha ha, there you go. You have now a working rangefinder. Well, working in that it moves up and down quite seamlessly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, already. This is basically one of the hardest parts out of the way, and that's just doing the body work on the helmet. So you are all set at this point to go ahead and paint, which we will go ahead and do right now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we are starting off by just painting up the aerators, just doing some primer gray there, Rust-Oleum primer gray, and then I'm hitting the entire helmet with the rangefinder and the tusks, of course, attached. What I found later is that it might optimally be better to have, or to spray the rangefinder separately from the helmet, but this method still works. Off camera, I went in and I actually taped off the tusks, the mouth section, and the rangefinder itself, because we want to keep these areas gray as we go in, and then we go ahead and spray some more paint. We're gonna we hit some the aerators with some flat black there, and then we're going in with the helmet and doing a flat white. This will, of course, you know, show us that standard clone look. And I'm just going over the entire helmet. I do end up doing 2 coats just to make sure it is nice and clean, and of course making sure that there's no drips. Now what I'm doing is I got my reference photos up, and I am working on taping off the sections of being able to do the blue, for the 501st blue for Rex specifically. And I am working with, I think it's like a 1/4 inch masking tape or something like that. This kind of gives me a little bit of structure, but also a little bit of flexibility. And I'm kind of just using the reference to kind of just guesstimate where it goes. It's not an exact science, but you do want the overall placement to be fairly similar. I kind of use the nose and also the angles of the visor as reference. I'm also just taping up the sides there, and then of course I went in and I taped off the entire helmet. And what I'm doing now is I am drawing the negative space that makes up the jag eyes. And of course, as you can see from moving in the camera, this is my setup. I draw a center line down the middle from where the mohawk is, and then I kind of use that to do a symmetrical mirror on either side. Now, this did take a little bit of practice in order to do this. This is not my first Rex helmet I've done, so I'm familiar with this process. But if you're not familiar with it, you may want to practice. And then I'm going in with a box cutter. You can also use an X-Acto knife if you want, and I'm tearing out the pieces of tape that I'm cutting out such that we can reveal the part that we're actually going to end up painting. That's pretty much set to go, and now we're back outside ready to paint. I do a two-tone process for painting the 501st blue. This is for Rex. This is for an A501st clone, really, of the phase 2 variant. I use Rust-Oleum's Brilliant Blue, and then I'm top coating it, or rather with a mist coat of the Gloss Deep Blue. And like I said, this is not a heavy coat. This is merely just to do like a light misting around all of the Brilliant Blue there. Once the paint dries, you're ready to go ahead and take off the tape and reveal your work underneath. Now, there might be some touch-up areas that you will need to do, but that's okay. That's completely fine. It also is completely fine that it doesn't look exactly perfect. What you can do is you can go in, and if there are any touch-ups, you can go in with like the same paint, and you can do a brush setup. I did that off camera, but as you can see on the jag eye there in front, I did go back in with the blue, and I got a little overzealous, so I'm going back in with the white and just touching that area up. If the white doesn't match exactly, that's okay, because you are going to be weathering this entire thing anyway, so it's going to look all blended anyways. At the moment, I'm just dry brushing the white over the blue and everything. This is kind of the first step of the weathering process that I'm doing. And this really kind of gives it a chipped look in terms of, you know, the overall look of the helmet. Once I do that, I go back in and I use some black. And we are going in and doing kind of the gray details on both the aerators, and we'll also eventually do the 3 rectangle earpieces on the side, since I forgot to tape those up. One of the reasons also why I didn't tape those up in the first place, I mean, you can totally, because those are meant to be gray anyways, but it's actually much better to just kind of paint the whole thing and then you can just paint over it. It's an extra step, but it's often much cleaner. And then I'm just going back in, and I went ahead and I'm painting some gray, or I'm doing some more touch-ups on the rangefinder as well as the tusks to make sure that the paint chippage that was there was all cleaned up and ready. So now we're going to go ahead and glue in our aerators. I'm just using some Loctite super glue to glue those in directly. And you can use like clamps and whatnot to hold them in place and whatnot if you want, but that is not really all that necessary. We're going to take the same acrylic black that we've been using for the aerator mix job so far and everything. We're just going to go around and paint on the black for the mouthpiece, or the vocoder, basically. This is black in terms of the references of the TV show, as well as, of course, all the pictures and whatnot online. And I'm just trying to make this, you know, as flat as possible. Might need a couple layers, but you're otherwise good to go. Now comes the fun part, and that is adding the weld lines to the setup. As you'll notice, I'm starting off with an acrylic yellow. It doesn't really matter which one it is or what kind of yellow it is, as long as it's just a yellow of some sort. And the reason why I do yellow as opposed to orange, as it mentions in the CRL, is that the yellow when we do, you'll see what happens with this particular method. I like starting off with the yellow because I think it's a little bit more authentic as a base coat for weld lines. And I'm just going in and I'm filling in the crevices. I'm touching the blue, but I'm not going over it because I think the blue is meant to be a top coat over the weld lines itself. They kind of line the chin there, and then they also line the top edge around the visor as well, because Rex's helmet his Phase 2 helmet is a blend of the Phase 1 and Phase 2 helmets. Now we're taking some burnt sienna and just kind of going around over the yellow. And so this is kind of where the that rust style kind of really comes to life, because you got the light undertones of the yellow, and then you got the kind of the brown mixture on top, making kind of this rusty color. And that's exactly what we want for Rex. Orange, I think, just looks a little off and not quite authentic to what's in the show. This is something that will, you know, of course, get approved for the 501st. No need to worry. It's a tried and true tested method. I just personally like this a little bit better. Now, you'll notice that there is some light blue there. Ignore that. This should technically be a little bit of yellow and some brown, but that is okay. And so now we're going to go in with some dark blue. This is kind of like a primary blue, again, from the same Deco Art lineup that we're using. It doesn't really matter what kind of acrylic paint you're using, but I'm just using a primary blue. And we are going in again, this time not as much as the brown. We're kind of just filling in the crevices with still the brown and a little bit of the yellow peering through. This is kind of the bottom layer of that blue weld markings, because there's a dark blue and then there's a light blue on top. This is kind of that darker blue from underneath. All about the layers in this case. We're kind of just filling in those crevices. All right, once that's ready to go, I just went ahead and got some white. Didn't even need that much blue or anything like that, and I just went ahead and mixed in and did a light blue. This is kind of like, it's not a neon blue, but it's definitely a lighter blue for sure. And I'm just going in and I'm filling in a little bit over where that dark blue was. And this is supposed to be something that kind of really, you don't really want anything showing through where the blue is, but that kind of gives you an idea there of what the look is. Okay, now we're going in with a little bit of black, and we're also going to add some white here. And this is pretty much just getting the final, you know, part ready, and that's the rectangles on the side. For mixing the gray, you really don't need a lot of black. Black is one of those colors that a little bit goes a very, very long way. So that is very good to do. And I'm just kind of showing you the amounts here. Obviously, well, maybe not obvious to you, but this is definitely way more than I need. But the ratios are more or less what I want to show you. And at the moment, I'm also just using the gray to touch up the areas like the tusks here. And then, of course, we're going in and we're painting those rectangles on the side of the ear. Now, I am taping off the area because I don't really want to get any on the side of the helmet itself, but this allows me to go in and do a nice clean job of those rectangle details itself, and then I can just peel the tape off and we're pretty much good to go. Alright, so now we have these little vent details here. First off, is you want to go ahead and just cut these to size. We are doing the right side here. These are the little vents that are included in the Imperial Surplus kit. And I'm just getting a rough estimate and sticking down where it is. I've taken the adhesive backing off. And you kind of just need to use the reference picks. And these little suckers want to come up so bad once you try to peel the top layer of plastic off. So you kind of just need to go in with your utility knife or a box cutter to kind of just peel away and tack them down, and you just need to smooth them out as best as possible. Once you got that done, you're going to do the same thing over on the left side and make sure that that is all set. You don't really need any glue. It's a sticker. It'll adhere quite well, and once you also seal this entire helmet, it'll also stay quite well as well. Again, same process. As you notice, it is kind of coming up a little bit. If it shifts a little bit, you know, try to go slow, try to go methodical to make sure that it all stays relatively in place. If it does slip, don't worry. Try to just get it back in place as best you can, and you should be good to go once you smooth it out. Okay, so now we're working on the hash marks here, and I've got with me a Posca paint pen that we are going in, and we are following the marks that are on Rex's helmet. There's two different sets of hash marks. I think it's 30 on the left side. Yeah, 30 on the left side and 27, I want to say, on the right side. You can easily do a Sharpie, you can do a Posca paint pen like I'm doing here. You can do whatever pen you want, as long as the lines are fairly solid and, you know, that you can see the hash marks, obviously. As you can see, I'm also going back in and I'm thickening the lines. I'm using a Sharpie here, but I opt eventually to use the paint pen just because it's more opaque than a Sharpie and it shows up genuinely a little bit better. I definitely do this for other parts down the line, as you'll see later in the series. But this kind of just makes it such that the lines are really pronounced, that people can see them, because the hash marks are kind of really, they're really one of those other design things that are kind of key to Rex's look. As mentioned in Rebels, or in an episode of Rebels, I want to say it's Commanders, or maybe it's a little bit later, that Rex really doesn't say why he made tallies. Once you're satisfied with that, we're going to go ahead and seal off the entire thing here. I'm using matte clear. You can use a matte or a satin clear. Matte is going to be more authentic to the show. Satin is going to be better for pictures, so just keep that in mind. Now we're going in and we are doing this process of weathering. We're starting with a black wash, basically just black acrylic paint, watered down, and we're going over kind of all the crevices and surfaces, and we are wiping off a good portion of it with a paper towel. And it's all about layers and trying to get that grime, grimy look and everything. I am leaving more in the crevices because that's where it would build up more over time, and then kind of just going over the surfaces basically, and, you know, making it not even, but definitely less collected than the crevices itself. This is kind of a process. There's not really one right way or wrong way to do this. I do know that it's very easy to overdo this process, to kind of just go slow, layer by layer, and build up whatever it is, you know, whatever it is, how much weathering you want to do. A thing to keep in mind is that you can also use, I'm using a black acrylic wash. The other method I use for weathering, which actually works really, really well for getting like really dirty clones and whatnot, is using black chalkboard paint. And this you don't really need to mix with water. You absolutely can if you want, but you can just paint it on. And then you can wipe as much off as you can, and then you basically use a sanding sponge and wipe the rest off. So that's another method that you can use, and I think I actually do end up using later in the series if I remember correctly from the build. But yeah, and we're kind of just going in now and we're painting in kind of scuff marks using like the dry brush method and everything. So this is another kind of just getting in the crevices and all that kind of stuff, just making Rex look dirty. All right, so now we're going in and we're doing the mesh install. Now, this is the mesh that goes right behind the mouthpiece there, painted black. Because, you know, it's painted black. And I'm cutting the mesh to size, and what I'm doing is I'm actually taking some pieces of craft foam and I'm super gluing the foam around the mesh itself. And then I am using super glue again to glue the foam to the inside of the helmet. That way that you're not gluing the mesh directly to the helmet, you're gluing the foam, which is holding the mesh, to the helmet itself. And I find this to be a much more secure method of adhering the mesh to the inside of the foam itself. Or excuse me, inside of the helmet itself. Because I've tried gluing the mesh to the helmet. It doesn't really stay all that well. And so this is a much more secure method. This is also a little bit safer method because the mesh can actually be fairly pointy, and you don't want to, you know, catch your skin or anything like that on yourself with the mesh itself. Okay, so now the last part, and this is for the visor. As you'll notice, I have some pieces already cut out and prepped that are the, it's the carpet side Velcro. And at the moment, I'm just fitting in the visor to get an overall placement. I do take the visor out to go cut on my bandsaw, but I'm just getting a rough template as far as where to cut the pieces. As you can see, I'm attempting to do that with my my box cutter there, but I end up going outside. Well, after I try it with scissors, I do end up going out and cutting the visor to shape on my bandsaw out in my garage, just to make sure that everything is all, you know, proportional shape and everything. Alright, that's what the visor looks like pretty much after it's all cut out. And now we're going to get ready to go ahead and install. I'm just wiping off the plastic and getting it all ready. And the reason why I'm using Velcro is actually simply because not a lot of people realize this. There is a maintenance cost to costumes, and so the Velcro method of installing the visor allows for me to take out the visor such that if I need to do any paint touch-ups or anything like that, the Velcro makes it easier on that. So once you're all set and ready, your helmet is pretty much finished.
Alright, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the completion of the Captain Rex helmet video tutorial. This was a lot of fun to put together, as well as a lot of fun to film for you all. I learned a lot along the way about how to go about filming stuff like this and everything. Always learning new tips and tricks. And I hope you all learned something as well on how to build your very own helmet, as well as build your very own Captain Rex helmet. We're going to continue, of course, the series with the next video parts being that of the arm guards. I am still in the midst of filming subsequently the parts for all of the costume in sequence as fast as possible. My hope is to have this costume done by the time the Bad Batch series comes out, so lots of filming and lots of work will be happening over the next several weeks. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, though, thank you all for watching. Feel free, of course, to hit that subscribe button if you're new, and thank you for stopping by. hit that like button. It definitely helps me out in the YouTube algorithms if you definitely smash that like button as much as you can. And if you want to join the conversation, definitely reach down to the comments below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, as well as my other YouTube channel, General Spear, where I have my gaming channel and everything, play games and all that kind of stuff, that would be awesome. Thank you all for watching, everybody, and may the force be ever in your favor.